Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the Earthworks podcast. And I've been doing this for 35 years. I've been on a lot of golf courses in my career, and I am very excited to be able to have an opportunity to talk to Eric Richardson, who is the superintendent at the Essex County Club, which is truly, and I know you don't believe me, Eric, but this is truly one of my favorite courses. I've been coming to your golf course since the mid-90s. And it's always, it's one of these classic old New England Donald Ross properties that I don't know anybody that wouldn't be totally in love with your property. And I earnestly say this. Like I said, I've been probably on the best golf courses in the country, and I would still put your property as one of the very tops in my mind. And that's just my little pea brain talking. I've never played it. I bet you would. I've never played it, and and you really shouldn't invite me to play it, but it's interesting. Thank you for joining me, and give us the quick nickel tour of this property for people that don't know the Essex County Club. You're in I don't even know what town you're in, to be honest with you.
We're in Manchester by the Sea, so we're about 20 miles north of Boston. The club was established in 1893. It's actually one of the first golf courses in America. So it started as a 9-hole golf course, designed by a number of famous architects. And then Donald Ross stepped foot on the property, 1909. Spent 4 or 5 years as the superintendent, the pro, and the architect. And actually, I'm only the 6th superintendent in the club history, and that lineage kind of included Donald Ross as well. So it's kind of a special group of people.
Wow. So you were a superintendent after Donald Ross. Not many people can say that. I never knew he was the superintendent there. What years was that? Early on, I assume. 1909 to 1913. So we have, an 18-hole, Donald Ross golf course, but we also have a large rackets facility. We have 11 grass tennis courts, 10 clay courts, 3 paddle courts, 3 pickleball courts. So it's not just golf at Essex; it's rackets as well. I still don't understand pickleball. I don't know if I want to, but it's popular, isn't it?
It's taken off, and we have the utilization rate is actually a little higher at pickleball right now than it is on the tennis courts.
Is that because it's new? Everybody's playing?
It's new, and it also you don't have to move as much, and I think that there's a lot of kind of older gentlemen and ladies that enjoy pickle, that can't play 18 holes of golf or can't play on the clay courts anymore. So it kind of keeps them active, keeps them involved with the club.
You don't have to move so much? I didn't know that. Maybe I will take up pickleball. I don't know. So who were the architects before Donald Ross?
You had Fowler, you had Flynn. there's Leeds,
really?
So there was many that came in and played around with the golf course. We still have some original greens. We have the oldest green in continuing use in the United States, which is the 3rd green, which has what we call the bathtub, and literally is a bathtub sunken into the ground on the green. So I'm a kind of a curator of a museum. So we will never rebuild greens. We've been adding modern infrastructure below ground, but we're trying to maintain the historical integrity of the golf course.
So your greens are still the original soil mix from back in.
Now, I don't know if they're underneath the almost foot of top dressing I put on top of them. Yes, but
exactly. But they were never rebuilt.
Never rebuilt. We just completed in April an internal drainage project. They never had internal drainage until this year. So we're trying to add infrastructure without reconstructing the greens.
I've said this to you, and I say it to a lot of people, but I honestly believe you're the busiest guy in the golf course superintendent world. You are never stopping. I've known you for a number of years. I've been on your property a couple times pre-COVID, unfortunately, and again, would love to get back out there. But man, I think the first time I got out there, you were just, what you guys have done to this property is exceptional. As I was saying to you a little bit ago, you're one of the properties with all the work that you've done, and I'd like to get into this, all the work that you've done, you're one of the properties that if you took me in there and dropped me in the middle of it blindfolded and I didn't see the clubhouse, I probably wouldn't recognize the club. And I know your club as well as almost any club I know that I've worked on over the last 35 years. So let's talk about what it is all you guys did. You took down 1 million trees. You moved, I don't know if you moved a lot of dirt, but you certainly took down a lot of trees.
Yeah, the members even tell me that every year I give them a new golf course. So,
really?
you know what?
So you're
Yeah,
that busy. See, I
every
told
year,
you.
yeah, you're not alone, Joel. So every year we kind of reconstruct things and we give them a new adventure on the property or a restored adventure on the property. You know, and all the work. What's interesting about Essex, and this goes back to Donald Ross and every superintendent before me. All the work's done in house. So we have architectural
Really?
consultants. You know, and other than the irrigation install and a
Yeah, of
portion
course.
of this drainage install, all the tree work, all the bunker work, all the restoration, T regrading, new mow lines, everything's done in house. We have 2 excavators, multiple skid steers, laser graders, and you're right. I'm a busy guy because I don't like to sit still, whether it's
Yeah.
July or November or December. People don't believe me, but usually January is one of my busier months because that's when we're doing most of the tree work. Over the
Hence the
years, we've
title, busiest
taken
guy in business.
yeah, over the years we've taken, I mean, roughly about 20 acres worth of forest, third, fourth generation forest. I mean, dense forest removed and opened up these hillsides and these vistas and connected the kind of the corridors of golf on the golf course. You know, for years and years and years, people played Essex and thought it was 2 separate nines because the front nine was, you know, felt isolated from the back nine, and so we've been kind of clearing out the trees in the middle to kind of connect those 2 nines and also kind of, you know, bring some of the wind back into play. You know, we removed a ton of trees on the 17th hole, which used to be one of the easiest golf holes, and just by removal of the trees, not adding any significant length, you know, now it's one of the harder holes on the golf course. So, you know, all the work is in house. So I've personally cut down trees. And then we're out there with excavators, you know, scraping the forest mat off the floor, popping stumps,
Wow.
stump grinding, and reestablishing turf, native turf when we're done. So it's been a project that really started in 2007. This is my 16th season at the club already.
Wow.
Goes by quick.
So you
Everybody
started
tells you
that
that, but
pretty
it really
early on.
does.
No,
Yep.
was there a master plan? Is this all Eric's idea? I mean, how did this all get
Oh,
going? Or did you
you're
just
gonna
get
get me
out
in
there with a
trouble.
chainsaw and they
You're-
couldn't stop you anymore? Get away, get away.
You're going to get me in trouble if you call it Eric's idea. But no, we have Bruce Hefner as our architectural consultant. Bruce has been with the club for 20 years. He's unbelievable.
Okay, good.
Fantastic in a
Yeah.
room. And, you
Remember
know,
you told me
are some of the ideas mine? Yes, but we will make sure we clear them with Bruce. And, you know, yeah, we've made some bold decisions and they've paid off because the ground is so interesting, because there's so much character in the property that was hidden by the forest. You know, we had these rock formations that are poking outside of the hills, and we have, you know, these natural grasses, and, you know, the golf course has been able to breathe more now that we remove these trees. So we've been able to kind of bring back some more linksy type golf, which is what the membership at Essex enjoys the most. They don't really want the golf course lush green. They actually want it a little brown.
Yeah.
So, you know, the tree removals had, you know, numerous positive effects on the property, not just from the visuals, but also from an agronomic standpoint.
I remember the first time I came out and met you, I vividly remember your enthusiasm of exposing some of the rock outcroppings you had. I mean, and they're stunning. I mean, I don't know the holes, unfortunately, but there's a couple, you know, around some turns that, man, the rocks, you said to me, you could never see those before you started. Did you even know they were there when you got there? I mean, you couldn't see them at all.
You know, I love walking a golf course, but I also like walking through the forest that's kind of in the middle of the golf course. So I'm always poking around and always kind of keeping an eye on what's really there, what's beneath the you know, the obvious.
Yeah.
And kind of just want to explain. It kind of started off with just one little tree project we did behind our 11th green. This was just covered in pine trees. And this was my first fall. And I had a great chair, Val Summers, who just let me go for the most part. And we exposed this hillside, and there was some rock, and we left the rock with the members, you know, weren't sure at first. You know, a lot of the comments I get post removal, because it always looks ugly the first year, no matter what anybody will tell you, no matter what. Now, we do a lot of camouflage and we do a lot of things to make sure we blend it away, but it looks ugly the first year. So always the first comment I get is, you guys are just watering the rocks.
Just watering the rocks.
Yeah, watering the rocks. We apply water, you know, for year one to get the seed to
well, if you water them, they grow a little bit bigger, and they'll make them, you know, make stronger and healthier rocks. I mean, it's
yeah, exactly.
Let me go back a little bit. Give me some of your history. I don't know a whole lot about your background prior to Essex, but give me some of your background. How did you get into this silly business, first of all, and go from there?
Yeah, so I mean, my love of golf started when I was young. My grandfather had this little piece of carpet he'd pull out of his garage when we go see him, and he'd put those little wiffle balls and give me a wedge, and that's how I learned how to play golf, was on a piece of carpet.
That's how Tiger started, so why not?
Yeah, in his backyard. So that's when I started my love of golf, and then I played golf in high school. But I actually went to school for criminal justice.
Oh, I didn't
My
know
aunt,
that.
yeah, my aunt Lori was the SAC in Long Beach for Homeland Security. My brother Jeff is a federal agent. Public service is a big part of my
Oh, I'm going to be a
family.
lot nicer to you now then, now that I know those things. I didn't know that.
Well, I doubt that, but
No, you're right. Probably not.
I don't deserve it. So,
Where'd you go to school?
I was going to Western Michigan University. So I was going for criminal justice. And that summer I started working on a golf course, and I was 19 years old. So I just finished my freshman year at Western Michigan. And I'm like, I love this.
Are
I
you
love
from
being outside.
Western Michigan? Are you from Michigan?
So I'm from Los Angeles originally, in northern burbs of Los Angeles. And then we moved when I was a teenager to Michigan. My dad worked for General Motors. Lived in, and then my family's kind of bounced around in the entire country. So kind of a long story that we will need more than an hour to cover all
I'm
that.
sorry,
That info.
where was this first job? What was the first?
It was Heather Hills Golf Course in Bruce Township, Michigan. So it's about 50 miles north of Detroit.
Okay.
I went to high school at a school, small little school just around the corner from there. Just a mom and pop operation. We had a 4-man team, which means I got to learn everything quickly. I was making irrigation repairs in my second month. We were spraying and fertilizing, and so I got a lot of exposure to what the business is, not just sitting on a mower. And it just, I just loved it. My biggest fear, at that time was living life in a cubicle. I didn't want to be under fluorescent light.
Right.
I wanted to be outside. I'd like to work hard. And you have to make smart decisions. So this business, it has everything that gets me excited.
Yeah.
And so I worked there, and then kind of applied to Michigan State. Got a turf grass degree from Michigan State, and was fortunate enough to do an internship at Myopia Hunt Club here in Massachusetts.
Okay. That's how you got out
and
to
worked for Dave Verroyan, who has since passed. And fell in love. I mean, that was my first exposure to the private end. That before then it was just mom and pop public golf course, which was phenomenal. But Dave really exposed me to what the top tier of golf means and what the expectations and standards are. Went back to school, finished that up, and then started working for Mr. Jennings at Chicago Golf Club right out of school. So I started this lineage of these. Yeah, started these lineage of these old world clubs that I just love and continue to love. You won't see me on a modern golf course. I'll play golf on a modern golf course. You'll never see me maintain turf on a modern golf course. So went from Chicago Golf Club. I was there, and Dave at Myopia had his first assistant job open up. I jumped. He offered me the job. I jumped at the chance. I pulled the moved from Chicago to just north of Boston. It pulled the U-Haul trailer in my Pontiac Grand Am, following a nor'easter. So that's how. That's how I made my way to Massachusetts. Spent 4 great years as an assistant in Myopia and Essex's Myopia sister club. So they gave me a courtesy interview because we were the sister club, and I got the interview. I walked out of there. I obviously did well at the interview and walked out of there the front runner. And so I took the job there at Essex when I was 28 years old, and I've been there for almost 16 years now. So it's been, I've been fortunate to be at the right places at the right time.
Yeah, that's a great resume, and it's a great story, actually. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can see behind Eric I guess that's the current picture. Is that what it looks like today?
It's from the fall, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to me about Donald Ross's house is actually right over your right shoulder, isn't it, in that picture?
Yeah, so he lived on the property. So on the fit right behind the 16th green, 15 tee. House still is there. It's owned by a former member. The club has first right of refusal whenever, if it ever goes up for sale, the club will purchase it and do something with it. But yeah, his house is still there. That they've added onto it, but the front portion that he lived in is still there in relatively the same type of shape as it was over 100 years ago. Wow, so this is one of the few properties he spent time on. He didn't just draw it on the back of a napkin, hand it to a chair, and drive away. He spent 4 or 5 years, and he learned some lessons at Essex. Yeah. It's a tough piece of property. So, he learned some lessons that he took with him to Pinehurst and everywhere else.
And I think there are about 100 golf courses that he did draw on the back of a napkin at the bar. But obviously this one was, so you can really see the Donald Ross influence in your property. Was when you guys started doing all this work, how much of that was in the back of your head? You had to be thinking of what it was when he was there, and in the early 1900s.
Every time we do anything, it's what we think about, and it's what his intentions were, what his thought process was, and it's not like the club has a bunch of great records because the club, as every old clubhouse does, it burns down, and
Right.
the club lost a lot of the records. So we have to go find it in the dirt. And that's what we
Yeah.
do. We go look at the different soil layers. We kind of figure out where the original, designs are for restoring or sprucing of the bunkers. We're trying to find the original shapes, and we do that just by identifying different soil profiles as we dig holes or as we move through the property.
How much have the greens changed? Have they changed in the way they move, the way they flow? I mean, have they? I mean, obviously, when they were built in the 1900s, they've got to be built differently than we're building today. But is there a lot of difference?
There is. There's no difference in terms of the design. There's a significant difference in their makeup now because of the sand top dressing program that we started. But
for good reason.
But we made, like I said, we were a curator of a museum. Bruce Hepner's first task at Essex, and this was before my arrival, was to fix all the mowing lines. So he mowed everything. Yeah, mowed everything back out to where these greens originally were. Everything kind of shrunk with triplex mowing. The same old story that everybody hears about. And they became these circles, just these generic circles. And Bruce mowed the place back out, which is probably the biggest, I mean, next to the tree work, the biggest change that the property has undertaken over the last, 20 some years. So we find the right mowing lines, and we promote what Ross intended in terms of his original designs the best we can.
That sounds so simple, but it isn't, is it? It's not simple at all, is it?
No, it's hard work.
So no, I mean, just to bring the mowing lines back. I mean, I don't know that I would have ever even thought of that, just from a restoration standpoint, but that's brilliant if you think about it, because that gets you back to where they started.
Yep. And it also, the fairways got really, it wasn't just the greens, it was the fairways as well. And what Bruce did was open up these beginnings of these fairways, because what Essex is it's very kind to kind of the lesser golfers. So it's very forgiving in spots, but it pinches at the right points for the better golfers. And that was kind of Ross's philosophy, and Bruce kind of, brought that back, in the early 2000s.
Is it fair to say Donald Ross is your favorite architect? Or are you allowed to say? Are you allowed to say anything else?
I'm not allowed to say anything else. But
okay.
No, but come on, any of the classic architects I love Mackenzie and Rayner and C.B. McDowell. Go down the list.
I'm a big William Flynn fan, and I never knew that Flynn had any involvement in your property. That's news to me. But there's a lot of them around where I live here in the Lehigh Valley and New Jersey, Philly. But some great Flynn courses, and I didn't know that he was involved in this. One of the things, one of the first times I came and visited you on this property, you had already started clearing some, and I don't know if it's 17 or 18 tee box up on the top of the hill, but I remember vividly, and you pointed this out to me, vividly standing on that. You couldn't see the clubhouse at all from that vantage point. And I remember you even saying to me, because you knew I knew the property, that you brought me up there and you goes, you'll love this. And we stood up on that tee. Is that 17 or is that 18?
It's 18 tee. It's 18. Best finishing hole in golf. Yeah.
So we're standing up, and it's a pretty good, height above the fairway. But you never, and your clubhouse is one of the classic old New England clubhouses. It's stunning, and you could never see it from that vantage point.
No, not only could you not see the clubhouse, but you couldn't see the 10th green, the 11th green, the 12th green.
Right.
So you couldn't see anything. They had these little chutes. So we had the 18 tees it's about 75-foot elevation. So it's the highest point on the property, and you're looking down on everything. And when I started, all you could see was down the middle of the fairway.
Yeah.
And so we've, that's kind of the biggest change we've made in terms of the tree work is on the 18th hole. But when you stand on the 18 tee box, now you have this big panoramic view. We do have one more area of removal that we're hopeful to start this off season.
Of course,
to kind of expand. I don't stop. But to expand it from, maybe it's like 270 now, trying to get it to 360. But yeah, we're opening up the views. Yeah. And the current clubhouse was built in 1915, 1916. And it's, old worldly brick and slate roof, and it's quite the view. And then next to the clubhouse is my maintenance facility, the barn, which is actually the oldest building on club property.
Yeah, which is actually very cool. I've always loved that building. I mean, it's old and barny, but it's a neat building, So let me ask you this: you get onto property for the first time. What are you thinking? I mean, it was woodsy. I mean, it was a dense wooded old Donald Ross property. I mean, it was beautiful, but it was a radically different than what you're looking at today. What was going on in your head? I mean, were you envisioning what this is today?
I think my exact words were potential. The potential was endless when I stepped on property. Yeah. And during my walkthrough, during the interview process, I talked about it. I talked about how every issue that they pointed out could be fixed. And I talked about how special this property could be, or is, and can be. And that's from day one, even before I began work, just the first tour around. Now I was fortunate enough to play the club, the golf course a few times prior,
Yeah. So you knew
being,
it a little bit.
being at myopia. Yeah. So I knew what I was getting into, but we still haven't untapped the entire potential. We're probably on about 60% done with the work on the golf course.
Well, of course, you've got a lot of years left in you. You got to do something. Well, let me ask you this. What were they telling you when you were interviewing? What were the concerns that they had? What did they want? What was their vision when you were talking to the first go around?
They were concerned about pretty much everything. So we had some work to do to kind of reach the standards that they wanted to achieve. So, they wanted to be a top tier club. When I started, the club was ranked 16th in the state of Massachusetts. I know golf rankings are fickle, but it has been a benchmark for us because of where we sat when I started. 16th in the state when I started. We're 3rd in the state now. The club had never been in a top 100 magazine publication prior to my time at Essex, and now we make every single one of them. So so there's some and don't get caught up in the rankings too much, but it does. That's a big jump. Does kind of prove that we've kind of made some of the right decisions over the last 15, 16 years.
But were they, when you were having that first interview, were they envisioning anything like what you've been able to do here? Or was it more of an agronomic and playability kind of conversation?
More of an agronomic and playability conversation, more of an operational conversation. I mean, the resources given to my predecessor were nothing compared to what I have now and what they gave me. The club has invested in my operation, invested in me significantly over the years, and that's, assisted the growth of the property. But yeah, I mean, we had, we just didn't have, they didn't really weren't sand top dressing greens. We just didn't have a lot of turf coverage across the golf course. So we had to address pretty much everything on the property: bunkers, tees, trees, you name it. We've addressed it over the last 15 years. So there was a lot of work to be done. Did the members see the golf course the way it is today? Absolutely not.
Did you see it the way it is today? Could you, I mean, if you went back and talked to yourself 16 years ago, would you be able to talk to yourself about, hey, this is what this is going to look like? Or did it really just evolve as you started really digging into this thing?
Well, we have a master plan, but we've also allowed the master plan to breathe. So unlike some clubs that do all this work in one shot, right? They do it 1 year. Here's the plan. No matter what, we're moving forward with it. We've been able to make some mistakes and kind of, backtrack if we had to, because things are done in-house and we have a tight timetable, but we have the ability to kind of push some things off. So the master plans breathed over the last 15, 16 years and evolved. Yeah. So, we're continuing to, learn from previous, lessons over the last 15 years and make the right choices moving forward.
Any trees or anything that you did that you sit back and say, man, I wish we hadn't done that?
I got to be careful here, just in case some members listen to this.
Sorry about that. They won't be. This is all for superintendents.
Yes, they will. They will be tuned in, no doubt. Yes, I mean, we've done some things like there's some of our tea additions and some of our tea work. We're going to revisit some of that.
But that can be fixed.
There's always things that you could do better. I don't know if there was just a complete miss, but there's things that we would have done better, or sometimes there was no book for clearing steep hillsides in-house. So you're kind of learning on the fly to a certain extent, and you're kind of every year getting a little better at it. So it's, as in life, you learn every year. Yeah. And in this business, you never stop learning.
Everybody I talk to that has cleared as many trees as you've had has had a political nightmare on their hand with somebody. Did you guys fight that? Did you, first of all, did you have any fight with the community, with the township or community or whatever authorities that you have to report to?
Yeah, well, number one, we made sure that we were outside. All the work happened outside of their jurisdiction, meaning outside of any buffers or wetlands. So we want to make sure that we had the right to do what we needed to do. Were there questions? Absolutely. Yeah. When you do make these kind of bold decisions, you have to have some sort of intestinal fortitude, to kind of deal with it. It is not enjoyable the year one. There's no way around it. It's going to stink, and you have to have a strong stomach. As long as you're making the right decisions and that the product is going to be what it should be, and you have the confidence in yourself, you can move forward through it. But you can't get caught up in every single comment, because when it looks ugly, trust me, their members are not going to get it.
I think most of golf today, I think most golfers are, they love to be able to see the golf course. Your golf course, you couldn't see any of the holes anywhere. I mean, it really was a major transition of golf. I mean, just from a strictly golf standpoint, you completely transition. But it's every time I've been involved in working with a superintendent that's had to go through what you've gone through, they remove all these trees and everybody's up and screaming and, we're at the clubhouse, bitching. And then they take the trees down and say, oh, look at that. I didn't know that was there. Or I can see that. Look, this, and it was to a T. Every place I've ever gone to. I mean, there's always one or two, of course, but for the most part, when the golfing community, when the members can see this beautiful property that is, design, it's a golf course. It's not it's not a park. It just changes their perspective and they fall in love with it.
They do, and they always. I have unbelievable support at the club. Like I
hope so.
No, I've
done so much. If you hadn't, you would have been gone years ago.
I work at a special place, not just because of the golf course, because of the membership as well. I mean, my second year at the club, I had some health issues, and my wife was pregnant with our first child.
I remember that.
And they had met my wife at that time, and the club threw her a baby shower, and it was 50 members that showed up and showered us with gifts. So they've always treated us like family. Family is important to the club. It's a family club.
Good.
So they've always trusted in me. But that said, they had their comments. They had their, there are times where they were a little concerned or upset. But again, you have to, as long as you know you're making the right decision, you just have to deal with it for the first year. By year two, anything that you establish looks significantly better than year one. But anytime you're establishing natives, it takes 3 to 4 years for it to fit the property. But the goal was to make sure it looked like it was always that way. And I think if you showed up on the property today, you would think that these hillsides and the exposed rock was there, as is for the last, 130 years.
So how much grass change has happened? Forget the trees and all that, but you've changed a lot of the grasses as well and brought in natives. And I mean, how much of that work has changed since the original, since you got there?
Significantly. I mean, we've changed our seeding program, whether it's tees, greens, fairways. We always use fescue in our blends, whether it's short grass or mowed rough. Our mowed rough is really pretty much straight fescue at this point. Our fairways are just a smorgasbord, but that's what an old worldly linksy golf course should be. It shouldn't be a monostand of anything. It should be this modeled look. So we want some, older bent grasses like Pencross blended in with some 007, blended in with some fescue, blended in with some colonials, because that's the look we're going for. That's the look that we want. That's also why we're not rebuilding the greens, because it's a POA bent smorgasbord. Come out in the fall when, everything's kind of looking funky colors and you got German bents and mixed in with this, that, and the other. And it's just it's a great look to the property. And we try to maintain that.
Do you have any velvet on that property?
We have a little bit of velvet on a practice green on a few greens. I think I might have pushed some of that out with my practices. So.
Probably. I mean, the area that you're in, I mean, a lot of people probably listening don't even know what velvet bentgrass is, but it's very prevalent in that part of New England. And it, a lot of guys had it, and, it's not the easiest grass to grow or maintain. But so you never regrassed the greens. You just basically kept them. You just did some overseeding.
We interseed. Interseed every year, multiple times. But we do not regrass. The whole point is to maintain the historical integrity of the property. And that includes the smorgasbord of turfgrass varieties that are on every surface.
Yeah. But you built some new tee boxes. What did you do? Correct. How did you grass those?
Those are just sodded. I mean, our tee boxes are a little small, so we can't wait for seed to germinate. So we have to move forward with sod. So those are more modern turf grass varieties. That's 007. But again, we overseed with fescue, and we do what we can to kind of blend them in over time. First year, they always look a little modern. Usually by year 2, 3, or 4, they blend in with the rest of the property. But we do a lot of interseeding to kind of lose that monostand look on the tees.
Let's talk about the agronomy in these greens. You obviously have brought in 16 years of a lot of top dressing. They must have changed an awful lot since you've been there. I mean, how bad, or I don't want to say how bad, but how much different are they now from what they were when you got there, and what were the challenges that you had?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges were significant. I mean, I did an ISTRIC test my first year, and they said, you won't have grass on these things by July. That's true story. It's in the report.
And historically, they hadn't really.
Yeah, no, it's in the report. Actually, what
did it say?
My first year, we didn't have grass in the greens late July. We painted everything to make it look like we had grass. But we got aggressive with aerification. And over the years now, with our aerification and top dressing programs, I top dress greens every week.
Yeah.
We mimic USGA spec root zone in the top 4 inches.
Okay.
So going from essentially a soil-based green to a USGA spec material in the top 4 inches, over the last 15 years. It's the biggest change we've made to the property is actually the quality of the grains. We'll roll from 11 and a half to 12 and a half every single day without double cutting. I haven't double cut the greens in 3 years.
Oh, good.
So we implement different practices. We roll a lot, top dress a lot, but we've done a lot with the greens, the collars, and the approaches. We want the ball moving at all times.
Yeah.
We want the ground game involved. So, approaches and collars, our collars are massive. They're more collection areas. And so every practice that we implement on the greens gets implemented on every collar and approach as well. So from 35 yards and in with the greens drainage project, we went all the way out to those approach lines, trying to promote ball moving, bump and run type golf.
When was the drainage project?
We started it in November and we finished it at the end of April. So
this is relatively recent. Okay. So
I
haven't
very recent, especially after 60 some odd inches of rain last year. We needed to drain the property.
Had to go. Yeah. Well,
yes, I used to have hair. So before, but
no, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
What was the drainage project? What did
so we did internal drainage. We hired NMP to do the work, and they mapped out. It's not just straight lines like you'd see with some internal drainage systems. We kind of treated it more like a bunker where everything spiders out. We're collecting the water as it moves, perpendicular. So it's we did 350,000 square feet of surface.
Wow.
So that's greens, collars, and approaches. Again, just trying to firm up the ground even when the conditions aren't firm. So we I like my golf course lean, mean, and not green. Hard to do that when you have 60 some inches of rain, and not that we're not going to get green, but we would have had some better conditions last year if we actually had some drainage on the property. So just again, retrofitting an old property with some modern infrastructure.
You're in a drought right now, though, right? You're fighting.
That makes me smile, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're pretty happy right now. You haven't had rain in a month and a half.
I like droughts. I like dry turf. Matt Schaefer stole my Twitter handle. I like my turf dry.
Right.
But Essex is an interesting property. The membership loves the golf course brown, so we kind of keep down the middle, off color but alive, and then we kind of let the mode roughs burn out. So the mode roughs are kind of inconsistent, though. Yeah, that's also we have a lot of fescue because we burn everything else out. But we have we have some green spots, we have some brown spots, and then it fades into the native. Kind of gives you that natural look. There's no hard green lines at Essex.
Since you got there, you did an irrigation project, though, right?
That was in 2010, 2011.
Okay. It's been a while.
Hired Leibold Irrigation, who to this day still shows up to do warranty work. They are the best in the business. And yes, that might be a bit of a commercial, but John is a friend and does an unbelievable job when it comes to irrigation installs.
Everybody says that. How bad was the system before when you got there? I've heard it was horrible.
We had 150 open holes in the first week I started.
You're kidding.
So it was an in-house job, actually. I won't name the superintendent who installed it.
No, let's not do that.
Let's not do that. But it was an old, impact sprinkler single row system that didn't have any coverage, that didn't work. Just every inadequacy that you can think of it had. So we had the Curtis Cup in 2010. We're actually the home of the Curtis sisters. And then as soon as that tournament ended, we actually started the install in July of 2010.
Talk about the Curtis sisters. I was going to bring that up, but since you mentioned it, explain that whole process and what the Curtis Cup is.
So, the Curtis Cup is the female version of the Walker Cup. Very amateur golf. It's an unbelievable event. I mean, and it's been going on for a long time, since the 30s, 1930s. And the Curtis sisters were members of Essex. They founded the Curtis Cup. So Essex had the Curtis Cup in 1936, and then we didn't have it again until 2010. Hopefully, we have another one.
Oh, I didn't know that. I for some reason I always thought it was always coming back to you guys since it started there.
No, I mean they're getting some top tier clubs now. National just got it. Marion just had it. So
I knew Billy had it. National.
But the year we had it, we had Lexi Thompson, Jessica Corda, the McGuire twins. We had a lot of top level players, and in 2010 it was quite the experience. And it's kind of a low impact event on the golf course. We had fans, but no ropes. We had TV towers, a few concession stands, but very low impact on the property. But really, golf how it was meant to be played, and that's amateur golf and match play format.
And this was before you did all the work you've done.
We did some things prior, but not to nowhere near to what we've done since.
Now.
We hit the accelerator once the Curtis Cup ended.
Are they talking about bringing it back?
I am.
That's all that matters.
I'm trying.
Well,
I'm trying.
and it would
So
be
we'll see.
it would be exciting because, you know, like
Yep.
I said, it's your property has really evolved to such a spectacular property. What are the big challenges that you're fighting right now? I mean, you've done so much work, but, you know, and I know I know you well enough to know you've got a lot of things in your head to keep moving forward. But what are the challenges that you're looking to
Well,
attack?
that's just the inherent deficiencies of the property. People hear Manchester by the Sea, they think the whole golf course is built on sand. It's actually not.
Yeah,
It's
no, you
built
got
on
pretty, yeah,
heavy soil and
yeah,
rock.
yeah,
So it's
mostly
I
rock.
mean, I literally have fairways that are you got turf, a half inch of thatch, maybe a half inch of soil, then straight ledge. So
Yeah,
that's we can't even aerate some segments of the fairways because the ledge is that close to the surface. So it's a very hard golf course to manage when it's particularly wet.
yeah,
Heavy
yeah.
clay soils are either really dry or really really wet. There's really no in between. So those are always our challenges, and so that's where we're moving towards more of an aggressive fairway top dressing program moving forward. Going to continue to invest in infrastructure throughout the property, bridges, internal drainage on fairways. We're going to continue with the tree work. We're just going to keep going.
Wow. So you got another 20 years to go. Then what happens?
They put me in the ground somewhere, maybe. I don't know. But
How do you find
but
time to have two children is really the question. I mean, you're pretty active on social media with your kids, and you have some great I've seen a lot of your social media stuff with the kids, and it's great. It seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like you get a chance to spend some quality time with the family.
yeah, and everybody talks about balance, and there's no such
Yeah.
thing.
No, there isn't.
There isn't, and so it's about quality, not quantity.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when I'm spending time with my family, I make sure that it matters. It matters the most. I'm taking this year my son was dialed into Celtics basketball. I'm a diehard
Oh, there
Laker
you go.
fan, so it hurt a
Oh,
little
I
bit.
think I saw a picture of you at a game.
Hurt a little bit, but when I took him to 2 playoff series games, and the kid had a smile from ear to ear, still smiling. About my daughter is 13, Alyssa. She's 4 straight perfect MCAS scores and on her way to whatever school she decides she wants to go to. So,
For her.
life is good. I married the right person.
I was going to say, you
She
must have
said
a
yes
really smart
somehow.
wife.
No, she said yes to me. She's not that smart. But
Good point.
but that it's a partnership. I would not be where I'm at in my life, and would not be as successful as I am without my family, without her in particular, Mary.
No, and it's nice that you do that. What's your feel on social media? I mean, you've been pretty active with your family, but I mean, a lot of superintendents just shy away from it completely. You seem to have, I mean, I didn't know until we were just talking. You have an Instagram page that really focuses on the club.
Yeah, so ECC Grounds 1893. Follow me. It's a private account, but I'll let you in if I like you.
So I won't be able to get in.
Exactly. So depends if I like it. But I have some hard and fast rules with social media. It's dogs, family, golf course. There's no no politics. Leave politics to the side. But social media has been one of the best forms of communication that I've utilized in the last few years. We started this Instagram account, I think it was 2020, and it's just pretty pictures. Then there's little hits on maintenance practices, but really kind of showing the membership and people what we see, how we see the property, and how special it is to us. And it goes a long way, a really really long way. And it really is a one or 2 pics and maybe 4 or 5 words, and it's amazing the impact that it has. So if you're not using social media to communicate to your membership or your golfers, you're missing out. You're missing out on an opportunity.
Is that your main communication avenue for your membership?
It is now, because it's evolved. The club was anti-social media for so long, as many clubs were.
Yeah.
But now the golf department and the rackets department, they all have their own social accounts, and the members love to see their property, love to see the results of events, to see what we're doing, and it's a quick look on their phone. They don't have to read through a 4 or 5 page email, which I still do, but not as frequently as I used to.
So even the older members, the folks that didn't grow up and with phones in their hands like our kids have, I mean, they're following the Instagram page.
Yep, it's amazing. It's
cool.
actually amazing, and it's a little bit of peer pressure too, and that's why if you continue to put pretty pictures up there, it's amazing how many people will actually follow and pay attention.
Exactly.
So some people that told me there's no way I'm joining social media. I'm 7 years old. I watch whatever news network they will eventually follow, particularly if it's the main source of communication.
And it's about, them or their life, I mean, their club is part of their life, right? So it's interesting.
Correct.
Let me go backwards a little bit. You kept talking about dry. How big is your crew? First of all, I don't even know this. How big
So
is
we have we have a 15-person full-time staff that includes myself.
Okay.
That's what we've done to kind of combat some of the labor challenges, is to kind of pay and
Keep them
promote
on.
as many full-time employees as possible. And we'll this summer we're about 28. It depends on, how many part-time employees I have. Some years I'm up to 30, 34, but again, it just depends on how many part-timers. But with the rackets and grass tennis courts and all my other responsibilities, you need an army to tackle all the tasks at hand every single day.
A lot of balls in the air. Let me ask you this question. I mean, obviously watering being so important. I ask this to a lot of superintendents because I think it's such a challenge. How do you teach, especially a young kid, how to water?
Most important thing you should learn as an assistant or an intern. And it's understanding what the limits are. And it's, watering isn't black and white. It's a lot of gray. So you have to understand, and again, you have to develop that intestinal fortitude to know that you're pushing and you got to stay on top of it, and to understand that maybe turf doesn't need as much water as everybody tells you it does, because it doesn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, and when I was teaching at Rutgers, we would sit around, and I've said this many, many times a year on the podcast, but it's an art, and it's almost impossible, certainly as a teacher, as an academic, to try to teach that skill, because you have to be there with a hose in your hand. So the issue is typically overwatering as opposed to underwatering. So a young kid would typically, stay there a little too long. And how do you get that out of their head? How do you help them understand that without hitting them over the head with a stick? Which
first you grab a big stick so you can hit them over the head with a stick.
Hit them over the head.
But
right.
No, but I go out and water with them.
Good.
So I still work. I'm not
that.
sitting in the office. I set up the golf course almost every single day. I hand water greens, and the only way you could do it is by going out there and working with them.
Yeah.
And we have, you say it's an art. I firmly believe a lot of what we do is an art form, but based in science. So it's the blend of the two. It's science and an art form. And we use TDRs, we use moisture meters, but I make sure these guys understand that those are used as a guide. But they should not be monopolizing their time by reading a meter reading, and they should be identifying what the turf can tolerate in that specific area on the green. Cupping locations are obviously going to need a touch more than an area that nobody walks over or gets trafficked or has a different turf grass variety. We have a lot of spots where we'll have a cup and POA, and then the other greens might have a whole location in a bent grass area, and those are going to be two different tolerances when it comes to water management. So you have to get out there and do it yourself. You have to experience it, and you have to force these young kids to put a hose in their hand and let them make mistakes, but also have to be out there working with them hand in hand.
Does everybody learn how to water?
That's absolutely.
Okay.
There's no outside of safety training, there's no more important task in my operation than plant health / plant conditions. And that is almost solely due to our water management philosophy.
Yeah. Especially on your property, because like you said, your soils are big, hard, and clay, lots of magnesium. I mean, you got a lot, and the rocks are just amazing. I mean, I'm not sure how you manage some of the areas of your property. What do you look for in an assistant when you go to look for an assistant? How do you vet a guy coming in or a woman coming in as an assistant? What are you looking for? What are you asking?
I don't care about experience, Joel. That's thing
good.
People don't quite get. I care about the person, and I care about the drive. So I hire interns to train them to be assistants. I hire assistant superintendents to train them to be superintendents. So we have this progression where I don't want my senior assistant to be at the club more than 3 or 4 years.
So you are pushing them through the system and onto their own world,
because they're career driven individuals.
Yeah. And you've had a number of pretty good guys coming through that property over the years.
Yep, we've had 5 superintendents leave Essex, or assistants become superintendents.
Oh, I didn't know you had 5. That's pretty impressive.
One of them was my brother, and we're working on number 6 right now. So but that's part of it. I ask a lot of my assistants, I ask a lot of my management team, I ask a lot of myself, but there has to be a payoff for them too. And it's not just their paycheck. It has to be, us helping them get wherever they want to get to in life, whether that's as a superintendent or in a different field.
Is playing golf important as a part of this process?
100%. I play golf once a week.
On your property?
On average, once a week. Sometimes it's just we have sunrise golf on Thursday morning. So you can tee it up about 5 a.m. I grab a member. We go play 9 holes in about an hour and 5 minutes. I played in a Saturday sweeps on this past Saturday with 3 other members. So get out there and play with your membership, because they want to see you as a golfer, not just as a superintendent. And it's amazing what you see as a golfer that you would apply to your maintenance practices moving forward. You can't you can't walk a golf course and understand what it needs. You need to play it.
And I mean, it's amazing how many guys I talk to, they say, I just can't stand playing my course because I can't concentrate. I'm always looking at stuff. But then I hear, your comments here, and it makes perfect sense to me.
I actually fell back in love with the game of golf. So, I got the golf club pad again.
You're playing Essex County every day.
How can you not get pumped up about playing Essex County? And
it changes every year. So you're playing a new golf course every year. It's wonderful.
I'm also thinking about what we're doing moving forward too. But it's and the membership's take on me playing is more positive than most people think.
I bet
they love seeing me out there.
Yeah, I bet. So is it a camaraderie, or does it sometimes become antagonistic when you're out there with a member and they're, sometimes they get to you to say, hey, you got to do this or got to do that, or is it always just a good time?
Well, I have a degree in turf grass management, but I have a PhD in ball busting.
There you go.
So I'm not afraid to push back and have fun, and that's it. I mean, and the most successful people, at the club would kind of respect that, when you're not afraid to speak up and not shy away from issues and admit if something's not right, admit to it. Hey, yep, that's not right. It has to be better. Yeah, they'd love to hear that.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. And I lived my life that way as well. Let me talk about your other work. You're very involved in the associations and other foundations. How long you been? What did you just tell me? You're the vice president now of the go ahead, you tell me.
I'm the vice president of the Golf Course Superintendents Association in New England, the oldest chapter in America. And I'm also on the board for the New England Regional Turfgrass Foundation and the advisory board for a local vocational high school, Essex Technical School. I stay involved in that. That wasn't part of what I was doing early in my career, but as I've matured, well, to a certain extent.
So you're giving back. You're starting to give back.
It's time to give back, but it's also opened up avenues for me. It's opened up channels of communication. I've hired people because I've been involved. It's amazing the give back that I've gotten just by me giving back. So yes, it's important to me.
And probably met friends from this process as well.
Dear friends.
Talk to me about the vocational school. I mean, that's news to me. I mean, what are you doing there, and what's the school all about?
So Essex Tech has a turf grass and landscape program.
Wow.
They have about 20 students. Most of them are female. So we're
perfect.
Actually trying to hire.
Get more people.
Let me go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we do a field trip every year. So for 6 years, we skipped during COVID. So 5 of 6 years, we have a field trip. They come out in end of October, early November, close the golf course. We throw them on rollers and fairway mowers. We show them what we do. We do some of the STEM stuff that you'd see that GCSA does, but I'm more concerned about making, sparking some interest in turf management and working on a golf course. A lot of these kids go work on landscape companies or nurseries. So we've done this for 6 years. Then we go out after that in usually January, February, I go present to the class and I kind of discuss pay scales of every level on my operation. So they understand that they can earn a very comfortable living doing this. So we have 2 Essex Tech employee or former graduates working for us currently, but you're never going to get big numbers from working directly with the vocational school. But I always tell people in a labor crisis, if you guys are not working with your vocational schools and doing outreach programs, I don't want to hear your complaints about a labor shortage. You have to do the legwork. You have to put your feet on the ground. You have to be involved. Otherwise, we're just not going to have the number of people we need in our industry, whether it's labor or assistants or interns.
Yeah. And needless to say, that's literally the biggest conversation I have everywhere I travel across the country. Anybody I talk to, do you know anybody? Do you know anybody? And finding alternative sources of labor. I've talked to a couple superintendents, and we've talked to them here on the podcast, and you kind of broached this, finding people outside of the industry that just love the game of golf. I mean, that's the enthusiasm that we need in this shop, and just give them an opportunity to play golf every once in a while. And like you said, you can train somebody how to water, and you train them anyway. I mean, there's nobody you're going to bring in that you're not going to train in your vision to water. So, just get somebody with enthusiasm. Have you hired any of the Votech kids?
Yep. 2 of them right now. And then we do co-ops periodically through the year. So they'll come out and they work, I think, 3 days every other week during their co-op. So they're in school the other days. But it's also, we did as association in December, we did this, meeting where we brought in Mass Hire, which is just a kind of a labor entity of the state. And she looked out in the audience. She goes, well, my first recommendation would be diversify, because we're all a bunch of white men sitting out there. And, if we're complaining about labor and we're only hiring white men, I mean, there's a bit of an issue there, Joel. We need to address. And it's not about, affirmative action or being political, but
I completely agree. I mean, it's a labor pool.
It's a labor pool, and it should be, a broad spectrum labor pool, not just people that look like us.
Yeah, which is good. And I think earnestly it is changing. And, we're certainly seeing more women in the business, which I think is unbelievably wonderful. And, and a lot of different minority groups coming in, and they're hardworking, dedicated people. And, people are people. It doesn't matter who or what you are. If if they've got the work ethic, then let's tap into that resource, because we're not growing in our work pool. I mean, everybody I talk to is 30% down in staff across the country. And I don't see that getting a whole lot better faster. So let's just, I think everybody should get on the board of their local Votech school so they can start recruiting kids from the school and, and bringing them in, which is good. What's the day-to-day? How much work is the association for you? I mean, is it a ton of time, or give me a description of how you're working on the association?
I'm not just the vice president. I'm the chair for government relations and a few other things. So I'm involved.
Shocking.
But I'm involved because I want to be. So it's not as much work as some people think it is. It's as much as you want to give back. We have an unbelievable executive director in Don Hearn, who's really a Hall of Fame superintendent. Don is as good as it gets. So if your association has a great executive director, trust me, the work on the board level is not a heavy lift. But it's emails, it's phone calls, it's text messages, and it's being present for certain things. But it's not as a heavy lift as most people think it is. And I urge you, if you have time, even if you don't have time, to get involved.
Yeah, I should talk to Donnie and get him on the podcast, because I've known Donnie for long years, and he's a class act, and I hope he's listening. Let's talk. I mean, I've run into you now twice, maybe more than twice, but twice at a U.S. Open in the shop. First time I didn't even realize it was you. I thought I was talking to somebody else, and I will apologize again. But let's talk about the recent Open. I mean, what a great. First of all, a great property, and Dave does a phenomenal job. But that whole setup was so unique. I mean, I've been on US Open properties and lots of tournaments, but of all the setups for the crew, that was hands down the coolest. I mean, it was sweet.
It was off the charts good. I volunteered at a number of events across this country.
I know.
And I have never seen a setup like that. And first of all, Dave Johnson did an unbelievable. Dave's a close friend of mine, and he did an unbelievable job of that golf course. I played that golf course before he started. It was nowhere near the same golf course. The programs they implemented, the changes they made were just off the charts good. And he deserved the award, the first ever, award for a superintendent at the end of the tournament. And Dave's about as good of a human being as there is. But the setup for the grounds, the grounds team was off. We're sitting on the 14th hole. We're watching them hit their second shots, hanging out on a deck while everybody's waving up at us. These people that paid, hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars for the tickets are waving up to us. And it just, thanks to Chris Peterson from Tom Irwin, Toro, and BASF for supporting that. But their shop was right in the middle of the golf course, so it helped facilitate that. But it was just the volunteer experience there it was something I've never experienced before. And the experience I had at Shinnecock was off the charts good. So it blew everything out of the water. And thanks to everybody who was involved with that.
And I talked to Bobby Sherrill on the podcast recently, and we were talking about it. But the coolest thing there was that sleep group that they had. Did you get the chance to participate in that, where they put you to sleep for 20 minutes?
Yeah, the problem is I don't have the patience to sit for 20 minutes, so I lasted 2.
I wanted to ask you that. How did you possibly survive that?
2 minutes.
Is that what you mean? Oh, perfect.
And that was impressive for me. So,
Yeah.
but no, they had sleep. People were crashed as soon as they were done with their taps.
There
They're
was a
sleeping
line.
for hours.
I remember the first
Yep.
time I walked through
Yep.
there was a line of 5. I'm like, what is all this? Oh, that's the sleep. So they put
Yep.
headphones on you and masks
Yep.
and basically put you to sleep for 20 minutes in deep REM sleep. And
Yep.
there was a line of guys just lying, folks lying down on these these loungers sleeping. It was wonderful. And everybody that I talked to came out of it and said, "Oh my God, I'm so refreshed. This is wonderful." It's
It's
truly
amazing what sleep does. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. So you've been doing a lot of volunteering for those kind of tournaments. I know I ran into Shinnecock and obviously this year. You've been doing this for a while?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. I mean, back to my days when I was an intern. My first USG event, I think, was the '01 Senior Open at Salem.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and not just televised events, but local events,
Yeah.
amateurs. We're hosting the Mass Am next year. So yeah, we're always giving back. I'm always giving back, and whenever we can,
Yeah.
my assistants will be one of my assistants is going to go volunteer a couple PGA stops this off season. I get more out of those than I do GIS, believe it or not. Sorry, GCSA, but
Yeah.
the networking and the connection you make with all these young professionals at these things is off the charts good. I actually hired an assistant for next year at this last US Open. So
really?
most of the volunteers are young interns and assistants. If you're a superintendent looking for somebody, might be worth
no, I think
try.
it's a great, I'm actually going to interview a couple folks specifically from the Open in a couple of weeks, but it's been great. You're going to go out to LA next year?
That's home, but it's a long haul. And for me to be away from my golf course for 10 days might be a little much. During this past Open, I was coming back to work in the middle. So I get there at 3 a.m., work till 9, and then I know. I'm a sick man. I don't know.
Like I said, the hardest working guy in the business. I'll say that forever. Hey, I hate to tell you this, but like I promised, this is going to go fast and it's gone, but I can't thank you enough. I mean, I am totally earnest in telling you that I have the utmost respect for you and I love your property. And I'm thrilled to have bugged you for so long and finally get you to say yes to coming and talking to us. But Eric, I can't thank you enough. Hopefully I get to run into you at another Open as well, or I guess we'll be back up at some of the Tom Irwin events. I think we're doing Academy and the Soils Academy in November. So come up to Gillette and hang out with us for a little bit. Appreciate it.
I'll have a scotch ready for you, bud.
There you go. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks for having me on, bud. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to the Earthworks podcast. We will be back next week. If you're not a subscriber, please be a subscriber so you get to hear heads up on cool interviews like the one we just had with Eric Richardson from the Essex County Club. And we will see you again next week.